Welcome to the Institute of Sustainability Studies podcast, a space for honest conversations at the intersection of business, sustainability, and impact. We started this podcast to cut through the noise and focus on what really matters, where the real challenges lie in sustainability and how organisations can overcome them. In this episode, Niall and I look back at the major shifts that define 2025, from global regulatory shake-ups to the rising cost of silence in sustainability communications. If you're trying to make sense of where sustainability is headed and how to embed it meaningfully in your business strategy, this episode is for you. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to the first episode of the ISS podcast. Today we're going to be talking about 2025 and sustainability and just taking a look back at how the year's been, what's changed, and I suppose drawing some key lessons from those trends and everything as per what business leaders, professionals, organisations need to be paying attention to then and prioritising in 2026.
Yeah, exactly. I think what we want to try and achieve with these podcasts as well is just give people, easy listening, bite-sized information. I think no better time to start, I suppose, than trying to cap and summarize a fairly turbulent year for sustainability and sustainability professionals, and trying to unpack some of those major shifts in the landscape from regulatory perspective to just general ESG action and what we're seeing. But and then I suppose as we move into 26 as well, how that kind of flows. But it's good to launch it now anyway, and hopefully we can have some interesting points to speak about, Brona.
Yeah, and this is something that we're going to be planning on putting out every month as well, on various trending sustainability topics as well. Like kicking into it and just looking at 2025, I suppose, like one of the things that I was sort of noticing since I was writing a lot of the content for our website and everything was that, the start of the year, we were going very strong, and it was a lot of kind of research coming out highlighting the ROI of sustainability. There was a lot on green skills demand and all of this as well. And then, and we'd finished up the year with CSRD being massive. And then we sort of hit a point where, all that sort of compliance and regulation was starting to be pulled back. And it's something I've noticed then throughout the year as I've been writing articles and producing content and everything is there is a real trend in that happening with various regulation, whether it's being delayed or, watered down or whatever.
However you want to phrase it.
However you want to put it. It's happening, and I suppose it's that thing of there are businesses out there that I've been speaking to for like our business spotlights and stuff like that who look at it and they don't see it as take the foot off the brake. They're still actively preparing, but then there's obviously going to be some businesses that think, oh, it's delayed, I can just deprioritize this now, or sustainability kind of falls a bit off the table because the compliance piece was a great way to, I suppose, get them to actually take action.
Yeah, and that's it. Like I think when it comes to anything like sustainability, nothing like compliance to actually force it up someone's to-do list. I think that's particularly what we would have seen definitely in 24 anyway, the likes of the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive coming down, the tracks, particularly forced companies that maybe weren't looking at it before to begin to recognise sustainability and begin to take steps to integrate it into how it operates, but also how it reports, and particularly on that reporting piece. I suppose, as we said, 25, well, the end of 24 started with kind of some optimism, and then the start of 25 particularly, you had big political changes both across the water in the US with the Trump administration coming into play, and the pullback, particularly what we saw in the US around everything DEI, everything ESG, and the threats to businesses doing that. But then particularly that kind of filtering towards into the EU space, where it was seen as, I suppose, the gold standard with CSRD, and then the beginning of water down or pullback on some of those rigid regulations within the CSRD space. Now what that kind of happened then, and as I said, it's been very turbulent. But you saw some businesses completely taking the foot off the accelerator, like as you said, that businesses have that maybe were just putting in claims or speaking about it, were doing so just from a compliance piece, but now that they have a bit more breathing room, are taking that breathing room, which was definitely disheartening to see. And I think even speaking to some other peers and some of our faculty and other professionals in the space, it's been troublesome for them as well. You had some kind of consultancies not being able to maintain their workflow, as I said, some people losing their jobs, complete ESG and sustainability teams being cut, particularly in the US perspective. So there's been real, I suppose, a negative feel around the space kind of into 25. However, I suppose a shining light to that was, and it's something that we definitely saw in ISS, was that certain clients who do view it from a strategic perspective and who were taking action, I suppose, and leading on sustainability, haven't stopped that. They view it as a benefit from a cost reducing perspective, an efficiency perspective, supporting them in kind of gaining more business. And I think that's something that has accelerated from our perspective, which is really, really good. And I suppose you've been looking at this a lot, that skills gap remains, but also that demand for green skills is still kind of growing as well. So businesses still recognize they need professionals within this kind of skill set space. So it does, and I think I've read something recently, it does feel that the whole piece went into a bit of a dip. There was a bit of uncertainty in terms of how businesses wanted to react, and then that kind of paused everything, which for some businesses just meant that any action on ESG or sustainability had to kind of completely halt if the compliance need wasn't there.
No, for sure. And I do think as well, obviously it's important to mention with taking the foot off the brake and everything like that. It's not all bad in a sense. It's disheartening, of course, but there are SMEs out there who they struggle already with prioritization, and they already have to kind of do that where they have so many other things on the day to day, and then there's sustainability as well. So it's kind of a challenge, because they lack the resource. It's interesting to see the trend with the green skills, especially even recently. I wrote an article there recently about a new report that come out, the LinkedIn climate stocktake report, and that was even saying that the green skills demand is not just for sustainability roles, it's transitioning into non-sustainability roles as well. So that's your supply chain, your finance, your tech. So it goes to show you that even with all these political challenges and the uncertainty and the pullback, that's still being seen as very important, and those skills are still helping people make themselves more, I suppose, competitive.
And I think I think that's something we definitely saw this year as well with the pushback, particularly on the US side around terminology and on ESG or sustainability or DRI. And a lot of times, as I said, action didn't stop with businesses, but just how they spoke about action changed. So, like you said, it still remained that they were looking at ways to reduce cost and drive efficiency, and a result that there was benefits to that. They just maybe weren't screaming about these benefits from a sustainability standpoint. And as you said, that also then is filtered into certain roles like procurement and operations, having more of a a play in terms of the efficiencies and costs they can drive, because ultimately it just the benefits in that regard. But I think that terminology piece was really interesting, that became less about banging the drum and all the good we're doing, but more about let's maintain from a process and a process improvement perspective, what we're speaking about. And again, there is challenges to that, because I think I think we've spoken about this before in terms of the green hushing piece, where businesses are afraid to kind of speak about the benefits and the good they're doing, because you want to be able to showcase examples, you want to be able to push people to let them scream about, yes, it's not perfect, but we've taken actions and we've seen this results, and promote businesses to do that. But I do think that shift in terminology is something that's happened. I think I think it's sometimes a natural evolution, and
Yeah.
we've seen it with, corporate social responsibility, movement
Yeah.
to sustainability and ESG, and I think that, I suppose the overarching theme is it's not going to go away in terms of the risks that businesses are facing due to climate, the changing world, and biodiversity crisis, but the ones that will, I suppose, flourish are the ones that are taking steps now to make them more
Yeah.
resilient and reduce those risks as well on the business. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I mean, green hushing is something that came up in one of our recent webinars as well, with Michael Costello, when he was speaking on this sort of topic in general and the ESG backlash and everything that's been going on. He really highlighted this as well, that, it's kind of transitioned, as you say, from greenwashing to almost a rise in green hushing. And businesses are almost like afraid to say what they are actually doing. But yeah, and then as well, there was another report that came out, the cost of silence report, and that was quite interesting because obviously we talk a lot at ISS about the return on investment with sustainability, but this report kind of brought up new terminology, which was return on reputation, and how important, I suppose, sustainability and communicating your sustainability efforts is for your reputation, your brand recognition, and everything like that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember too that sustainability isn't just a compliance piece. I think because of the regulatory guardrails that were coming down tracks and now kind of being watered down, and some businesses stopping any action on it. Ultimately, the whole point of taking action on sustainability or taking action around your ESG strategy is from value creation and risk management.
Yeah.
And the evidence is quite clear in terms of the high cost of inaction by not doing anything and the risk to your business as a result of that, but also quite clear in terms of, I suppose, some of those other high return on investment pieces, from increasing your sales, increasing your value, your profitability, your financial and market, reducing your financial and market risks as well associated with that. I think businesses definitely recognize that. I think, however, it's important to recognize that in order to kind of capitalize fully on those benefits, sustainability really does, and I suppose it kind of comes back to what we discussed earlier, really does need to be part and become part of how a business operates and be integral into the overall strategy. And by doing that is also ensuring that everyone understands what it is, understands the role they play in that. I think that's was a good place we're probably getting to again and finishing the year on is that value creation piece, and businesses recognizing the value in actually taking action, and seeing compliance or reporting purely just from a progress perspective and less about the end game. Yeah,
and I suppose that's even highlighting like another kind of, I don't like to say trend, but another shift that's happening as well. In the sense that, kind of, I suppose when sustainability was really, sort of taking off within businesses and stuff, it was the trend to nearly get one person in to sort of lead that out and everything. And now we are moving more into, the company-wide integration from that factory floor up to leadership, up to the board, like making sure everyone is on this kind of journey together. Which is obviously really, really important. And the stats completely back this up for employee engagement and, I suppose overall morale. And there is increasing research that people want to work for companies where there is a purpose and they feel like they are making a difference as well. So it's kind of interesting to see that shift happening too. I suppose as well with that kind of cross team integration piece, it does lead to a lot of innovation as well. And that's something that we've seen with the people we're working with too. Like if you take Insert, for example, where one of their team members working on the factory floor was able to identify a potential sustainability initiative or change
kind of guiding the strategy
there
and
could
supporting
actually
the
be cost
overall
savings.
engagement, but they're working with both
And
their internal
at the end of
stakeholders
the
and
day,
external
that
stakeholders to try
person
and
knows their
drive
work
and action
best.
that
So
strategy.
while someone working like a sustainability consultant coming in or something like that can advise, it's still the individual in that role that's going to know what they do best. So once they have that knowledge, they're better kind of supported there and everything. So it's nice to be able to see, I suppose, those pockets of innovation that can happen throughout the company when the knowledge is embedded throughout.
Yeah, and I suppose like we summarised quite well there, I suppose, the changes we saw this year.
Yeah.
The ups and downs, how businesses reacted to some of those changes, and then also how that's kind of reflected in either the structure of sustainability teams within businesses or the non-existence of teams altogether within businesses.
Yeah.
Like, I suppose to try and capstone it and finalise is, like, looking ahead, what are some of the biggest mindset shifts you've seen from business leaders? And particularly as they make, I suppose, moving into 2026 as well.
Yeah, I suppose it comes back to that not assuming regulatory comfort piece. It's like what you were saying as well, the early preparedness is key. The ones who are going to thrive are the people who are the professionals and the companies that are preparing now, addressing their skills gaps, taking action, basically.
Yeah, because I think that's it as well. Like, what we've been communicating with businesses is there has been now more time given to meet the regulatory compliance, but it's not going away. It's coming down the tracks anyway. So I suppose businesses that still will take the lead in the future are the ones that are beginning to put in the structure, the capability, the resources to meet that regulatory compliance, while also taking some of the advantage of some of those benefits we've outlined in terms of cost, in terms of profitability, in terms of reputation. Exactly. But I do think, that biggest mindset shift for business leaders in 26 is, let's not take this breathing room we've been given from a regulatory perspective as a means to do nothing, but let's take it as a means of proper plan moving into it. I think 2026 is a great year for that. If anyone hasn't taken action on sustainability or is looking to take action on sustainability, it's really trying to take those simple steps. And it doesn't need to be complex. It can be simple. No. And I think that would be probably one piece of advice from my perspective for anyone looking to start is just to start. And I think one challenge we do hear about oftentimes is, I'm only one person. How do I get buy-in from others? Yeah. And it is just that starting. Like, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Just start, get some information, gain some traction, gain some progress, or take a small initiative or action, and through that and communicating upon that internally, particularly, you can drive and accelerate action and build more engagement with others, stakeholders that you require. So I do think there's huge piece in just taking that first step and then accelerate from that. So I think from my perspective, that would be a huge piece of advice, particularly just in trying to showcase some of these ROIs, because I think oftentimes we hear is, this isn't going to be a runner. They don't see the value in it. They know they want to do good, but they're not losing any business because of it. But again, it's trying to get some of those key action points or key progress points that you can begin to communicate, particularly if you have that blocker within a business.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a thing of, if 2025 was very much focused around intention, 2026 should be focused on actual implementation. And I think as well, like we said, the benefits of having a more sustainable business are undeniable. They span so many different areas. This is not a nice to have. It's so much more than that. And I think that for so long, sustainability has been treated as like a separate thing. Whereas it really needs to start becoming how we do business. This is how we do business,
Yeah.
Because I think that's key to business success, long-term growth, value creation, and ultimately resilience.
Yeah, and I think so I am finishing the year definitely more optimistic than I did at the start of the year. It was definitely bleak at the start of the year.
Yes.
But like, and I think, speaking with other sustainability professionals, I think there is a more positivity feel. It feels like the things have gears begun to move again. And as I said, I think it's funny, I've heard someone say it feels like we're in a sustainability recession, but there will, I suppose, an eventuality come out stronger. And I feel 2026 is the opportunity to do that. Like the challenges are certainly still big and they remain. What we found is the funds tend to get smaller. And I suppose the impetus on professionals then to actually take those quick wins, take those small wins and begin to build momentum is key. But as I said, the businesses that are going to win in the future are the ones that are beginning to implement the infrastructure and build in the capability internally and formulate that strategy and integrate it as part of what they want to do.
Yeah, and it's like what you said, like, it's all about getting started. And whether you need to start small. I think with sustainability and it being such a kind of a complicated topic with all these acronyms and everything like this, there's a tendency to sort of, as a company or a professional, approach it and nearly overcomplicate the whole thing, when really there's so many small wins there that you can take that makes such a difference. But really it's a case of, draw it right back, get your plan in order and get your priorities listed out. Don't try to jump to everything immediately. Set your targets, set your goals, make sure that they're smart, that they're realistic, time bound, all of this. And it really is just taking those baby steps, because they're better than nothing. They're better than staying in the intention zone and just thinking about becoming more sustainable.
Thanks, Brona. I think that was a bit of a mind dump from us, but I think it's good to share thoughts on what we saw in 25 and what kind of happened. As I said, we're hoping to do more of these moving forward. Again, and happy to engage network. If they want to get involved, please do.
As 2025 draws to a close, one thing is clear. Sustainability is no longer a side initiative. It's reshaping how organisations plan, invest, communicate and grow. If there's one lesson to carry into 2026, it's this. Progress comes from embedding sustainability across the business, from supply chain and strategy to people and performance. Thanks for listening. If this conversation helped clarify your thinking or spark new ideas, share it with your team. And as always, you can find more practical tools, training and insights at the Institute of Sustainability Studies.com.